Where the fuck are the trees at? Where's the shade? Where's the clouds?
What was your darkest
Man.
moment, do you think?
In all of the travels, there were three darkest moments. I think the first one that I experienced was in the Gobi Desert. I was sort of walking through the middle of the Gobi Desert. It was 5 weeks. I'd already faced 3 weeks in the Altai Mountains, so I'd already lost weight. I was in sort of minus 15 degrees Celsius conditions. And so I never really felt like rehydrating because I was cold. You know, the weather has that effect on you. And by the time I hit the desert, I was probably slightly dehydrated anyway. So I planned that wrong. And then I couldn't start drinking and you're getting dehydrated.
Yeah.
And so
Better hydrate.
And so I really sort of couldn't hydrate enough because I had to ration the water because I had set wells. So I had confirmed water sources and unconfirmed water sources. And then as I approached an unconfirmed water source after a couple of weeks, it was dry. And I now had to, I kind of had a plan whereby that's fine because I'll make sure I'll double up from the previous confirmed water source and have double the water, but it's easy to say that. But when you're actually out there 40 degrees, you do go through that water because you're really sort of thirsty. And now I had, from this point, I continued to walk, rationing the last remaining dribbles of water that I had, which was now hot water. I slipped into severe dehydration, heat stroke. I was delirious, I was hallucinating, and I could almost feel my organs drying up, like this dry sensation on the inside of my body. And I just became very weak. And this trailer now felt like 500 kilograms because the thin tires that I had were now sinking into the soft sand. So it wasn't building that momentum. And I just remember hiding under my trailer, and I'd be under there for a good hour at a time as, you know, my legs would hang out. They would just be absolutely burning. There was no breeze, there was no natural shelter, there was no cloud coverage. And I remember eventually it got to a point where I was like, if I don't keep getting up and pushing on, I'm going to die out here in the Gobi Desert. And it was that realization, I think, that because I went through a sort of thought process where I was feeling sorry for myself. I was thinking of family and friends. I was then, you know, playing out how reckless all of this was. But then I sort of, it's funny, before I went out to Mongolia, I recorded a voice memo for myself as inspiration. I would hear Ash back at home with his family, warm, dry, belly full of tea, has eaten, you know, and the positivity of sort of, if you make this is what can happen. If you don't make it, it's back home. It's back to lifeguarding or back to the fish and chip shop. You have no other choice. You know, I gave myself a stern talking to, and I told myself I wouldn't ever listen to that voice memo unless I really, really needed to. And it was that point in the Gobi that I pulled out. I listened to that voice memo, and then I decided to get rid of the sort of feeling sorry, victim sort of mentality, fuck off that, and focus in on the only option that I have right now, which is to survive. And I'm a big believer of like the law of attraction, visualization, you know, and so I was kind of trying to visualize 4 days. I now had 4 days to get to the next water source, and it's confirmed there's going to be people. I can rest. And I did have, the only evacuation plan that I had was text only to my logistics manager in the capital, and I'd need to allow for him to get to me at least 3 to 4 days, and then another 2 days to get me out. And I didn't believe I could survive 6 days or more, but I did believe I could maybe survive 4 days. So instead of focusing on the days, because I was in too much agony, I focused on 100 meters. I could see 100 meters in front of me. I would take a feature point in the distance. I'd be like, let's try to get to there. I'd get out of my trailer, strap the 4-point harness on, walk for 100 meters, 200 meters if I could, hide under my trailer for no more than 5 minutes, get out, walk another 100 meters. And I did this for 4 days, and I just about made it to that community. I collapsed. I was in a real bad way. It took me about 8 days to recover. My urine was pretty much black. And I was scared now. I had a lot of fear from the sun, facing the desert again, how fast it can take you. And so I was very hesitant, but I was also very dogged. I remember speaking to my logistics manager, and he says, you know, do you want to pack it in? I was like, look, if I have to stay in this god-awful community for a month or 2 months, that's what I'm going to do to make sure I'm fully recovered to be able to complete this expedition. So that was a dark time that I learned a lot about myself from, and the capabilities and the mistakes. that I never sort of, I've never been dehydrated again since, you know?
Yeah, I bet.
Another one was sort of malaria. Bit of a shorter story, I'll keep it short, but malaria, I was in this community that was actually suffering with the bubonic plague. They still have the plague out in Madagascar. It's insane. And they had relatives who had recently died, and we rocked up because we wanted food, we wanted water. They said, stay inside your tents, we'll cook food and bring it to you. They brought food, it was eel, it smelled a bit funky, it was off, but we weren't 100% sure of that. Me and my guides were then eating it, and for the next few days we were suffering with diarrhea. So the anti-malaria pills were going in one way, out the other. Didn't have my full protection, and then I didn't know at the time, but I contracted the deadliest form of malaria. You know, there's 4 different strains. This one was falciparum. The positive, if there is a positive, is this is the only strain that you can completely eradicate from out of your system. But if you don't catch it in time, it will kill you normally within 24 hours. Whereas the 3 lower strains, they're not as deadly, but they can remain dormant in your system.
Yeah.
So I had the deadliest, and because of the anti-malaria pills, I actually had to walk for a good 4 to 5 days with the disease until I made it to a hotel, because I couldn't go into a hospital, because if a mosquito bites me and someone else, they've then got, you know, and she took my blood. I just remember it all blurry, you know, doctors' heads were spinning. I just collapsed sort of on the bed at the right time. And they came back and said, you know, if you were 3 hours longer, you would have potentially slipped into a coma. And that was 1 month into a 5-month journey, you know, and I lost 13 kilograms that week on the medication trying to sort of recover. And then I had to do another 4 months with a 35 kilogram backpack for the rest of Madagascar, which I still had 4 months left. So again, I learned a lot there. But you know what, maybe the scariest one was? It was actually not me being in danger, my life. It was when a photographer joined me, a female from Brazil. She was hardcore. She was like a Lara Croft. So I said,
love that.
Yeah, she was nails.
Badass.
And so I said, yes, come and join me. And she joined for 2 to 3 weeks. And she had lots of mishaps along the way, bless her. You know, she almost couldn't wait to just get out, because I think there were lots of shit-faced, you know, from leeches to spiders. She had a leech bite on the face, actually, so she was just bleeding from the face. And we had a nighttime river crossing in the cyclone season. So picture this, it's pitch black, it's cyclone season. We're at a river, the Mava River, trying to get across to the other side before this next storm hits. And if this storm hits this river, we can't cross it for at least another few days. We've done all of the hunting and gathering we can do. We're all really hungry, and we're desperate to get to the village that we can almost see right in the distance. And so we had to get across this river. We saw a local who was there also trying to get across the same river. He must have been there for hours, but he was waiting for people so that he could form a human chain where we link up hands. So we linked up hands. Me and Max, my guide, had this argument about whether we should face upstream or downstream. I said upstream so we could fight the current and our toes can sort of curl in and like hook the rocks. And he was like, no, let's go downstream. We went downstream. Suzanne, who was with us, we're forming this human chain. We're following the local because this local knows the exact rocks to keep your head above the water. So our torches are shining in each other's face. We have to shout because the roar of the river is so loud. We're looking at the local and seeing exactly where he puts his feet, otherwise we're gone. And Suzanne missed her footing.
Oh my God.
And so she is hanging off mine and Max's grip. We're wedged in between the rock, doing everything we can. And it was at that point, not only the current and the strength of the river, but she was also wearing a backpack. So if we lost gripping, the backpack would have pulled her down. If she was lucky enough and let's say the backpack sort of didn't pull her down too bad and she didn't bang her head on all the rocks, if she survived all of that, it's crocodile infested. And there's crocs further down, and the Mava River is notoriously known for crocs. And it's nighttime, you know, and we were just like, oh God, I don't know how we did it. Something must have been on our side that day, but we managed to get her foot gripping and we managed to cross to the other side. And, you know, she was in bits on the other side, and I was sort of like adrenaline, like, woo, we did it.
It's like a chest pump. Like,
yeah, I was like, yes, that was, how the hell did we survive that? You know, she's like in bits.
Yeah, I bet. She's traumatized.
Yeah, and then, you know, we made it out the jungle. She went home. But that, I think, was scarier than the desert and malaria, because that's someone else's life on my journey, you know? I would have just felt somewhat guilty having agreed that she joins us on such a serious sort of world first record expedition. But yeah, so those are my 3 darkest. That was a long answer, wasn't it?